Good morning. Y'all look great today. I was telling someone maybe we ought to get church uniforms. That way you don't have to worry about what you wear on Sunday morning. You just put it on. Some people like that idea. Not everybody. Glad to see all of you today. We're looking forward to what we have in store. This is a special time we've set aside with our 75th anniversary to look back at the history of our church. I want to read just a couple of verses this morning. In Exodus chapter 10, it says, "And the Lord said unto Moses, Go in unto Pharaoh, for I have hardened his heart, and the heart of his servants, that I might show these my signs before him, and that thou mayest tell in the ears of thy son and of thy son's son what things I have wrought in Egypt, and my signs which I have done among them, that ye may know how that I am the Lord." And I think that that's part of what today is about. It's about telling others and reminding us of what the Lord has done over these past 75 years. It's enjoyable always to go back and think about memories. But what's especially powerful in the memories that are going to be shared today is to know that God is the Lord. He is the same God He's always been, and He is still capable of doing everything that He's done in the past and more. And that's a great comfort, and it can be a help to the church as we continue to try to build and look forward to the next 75 years. We want to have a word of prayer today. We want to pray for all who are going to be speaking. Looking forward to all our guests that we have with us, and want to let you all know how much we appreciate having you with us. And good to have Brother Chad with us too. And he'll speak here in just a moment. But anything before we pray this morning? If not, Brother Trey Cruz, would you lead us in prayer today? We have several things to look forward to today. At the conclusion of the service this morning, we're going to go outside in front of the Legacy Sanctuary and take a picture. Doesn't matter if you're happening to wear the t-shirt or not. You can Photoshop anything nowadays. And so we probably can take care of that. But we want to get a picture right after service, and Sister Teresa is going to help me not forget. But that's what we're doing right afterwards. We've also got a wonderful lunch spread that we'll be able to enjoy. But I'm looking forward most especially to what we have coming up right now. And it's a blessing to have our mayor, Brother Chad Edwards, who has a special connection to this church. And I'm going to ask him to come forward and speak to us here.
You know, it's a great day to be here on behalf of the town of Huntingdon. I am proud to have a church, have churches. We got multiple churches in this community that serve the Lord. But it's especially great to know that I'm standing in a church that's been serving for 75 years faithfully. You've been telling the truth, whether the audience liked it or not. The preachers that took this pulpit have told the truth. Me and Mama was talking earlier about 1991. We think my family come to this church, so most of my youth I was right here. And I told Brother Lynn I'm probably the only mayor that's ever stood here that was saved at this altar. So over them 75 years, about 26 years ago, I was saved. right here in this church. So I know at least one good thing that would happen to me in this church. I love this church. Most of y'all I know, or y'all know of me, and it's a family. I'm proud to live in a country where we can do this right here without people opposing us. I know there's been ups and downs through those 75 years, but we have looked to the Lord, and if we keep looking to the Lord for His provision, another 75 years is just right over the hump. I thank y'all for inviting me to speak, and it'll be a great day. Thank y'all.
Let's all turn to number 209. At this time, we'd like to invite Miss Ann Ridings to discuss the beginning and the early years of the church.
2 male escorts today. That's great. At least it's not 8, or is it 6 that's taking me out the door to go to New Hope. I feel really honored today to get to talk to you about something very dear to my heart, this church. I look out there today and I see so many wonderful faces, people I love so much and have loved through the years and on past and past. But my time is short here, and so I want to get right with this and tell you about some wonderful things that happened a long time ago. There is only one charter member of this church still living, and that's Mrs. Betty McCollum. But unfortunately, she's not able to be here. Other than that, I'm the oldest person I guess I'm the only person still living, besides Betty, who remembers that day that this church was born. I don't know why the Lord has left me here. Maybe it's for this, to let you know that he's still working today, just like he worked that day a long time ago. So let me tell you a little bit about that time. There were a group of neighbors along this highway that had come from older churches. They were just regular, ordinary people, but they loved the Lord, and they didn't want to be without a church that they were familiar with and that believed in the basic Baptist doctrine. So they got to meeting in places in their homes and having prayer meetings, and then before long there was some talk about maybe do we have enough people to organize a church? And Robert Knowles and Lois Townsend were the ones that started instigating this, maybe we need a church. They would visit with us and talk to us about what we thought and what they thought. Could we, just a few of us, get together? Could we afford to build a church or get together and have a building where we could meet and not just meet in houses? So they decided, why don't we step out on faith and get together and try to get us a church? So Mr. Sam Taylor had this old garage in his yard. He says, if you want to, you can meet in this old garage, and you can use it anytime you want to, and as for a meeting place. So the old garage, now this is not the real one, obviously, but my son has kind of gotten me introduced to AI. And so he said, well, tell it to build you one. So he and I got our heads together, and I described it as best I could. So this is what AI came up with. But the way I remembered it looks a whole lot like that old garage where we met for that church, when that church was born. Except it doesn't have the plank seats. We just had boards, long boards on each side for the people to sit in. But it was a place we could get together and we could all be together in close communion. And on Sunday, May the 14th, 1950, a group of about 20 or so people met in that old garage. And there was an air of excitement. You know, they were there to do something. Passers-by probably wondered what was going on with this group of people sitting in that old garage in their starch white shirts and ties, and the ladies with their hats and their Sunday dresses on, because it was our church. We were going to do something special. We were going to start something. Something wonderful was going to happen. when they decided they needed to start a church, they thought, well, we need an established ordained minister to guide us in what we're doing. So one of the most theologically sound preachers in our area at that time was Brother Hersey Hopper. I'm sure none of you remember him. Wonderful, wonderful preacher. And he was well studied. Everybody went to him. He was the go-to man to find something out about the Bible. He studied, he was a farmer, but he studied and he was theologically sound and could keep us on track. So he helped us and told us what we needed to do and said, you need to get together some articles of faith, adopt those and your covenant, church covenant, and have all that stuff ready. And you who want to become members of this church that we're going to establish need to get your letters from your home church and bring them with you to the organization. And so the ones who were prepared came and brought their letters, and they were really expecting something wonderful to happen. But they wanted so bad to have a church where they could meet and practice the way they had grown up believing in. And if you'll give me this minute, I'm going to read you the organizational minutes of this meeting that happened in this old church. May 14th, 1950, a congregation met near, now this is the actual minutes, not here, but verbiage. They met by singing and prayer offered by E. Elihu H. Martin. I'd like to just mention right here, as a little caveat, Brother Martin was well respected too, but he had I'm not sure what it was, whether he had polio or whether it was an accident, but he was a staunch preacher, but he had to preach sitting down. He had to be in a chair all the time. But pardon me, he was always ready to go when somebody called him to preach. And you'd come, and they'd bring him, and somebody would bring him in the car and then carry him in a straight back chair out to where he was going to be. So he was there too. The purpose of the meeting was to organize a Missionary Baptist church. Number one, Brother W.H. Hopper was elected as a moderator. Brother A.D. Greener was selected as clerk. Brother Hopper preached the organizational sermon using Daniel 2:44 as a text. Brother A.D. Greener read the church covenant and the articles of faith. Brother Hopper, as moderator, called for all the letters of the persons who were to be charter members. The clerk read the letters, and the members were declared an organized church, being 16 members. Those 16 members were Lois Townsend and Lorraine Townsend, his wife, Claude Carey, who was the grandfather of Betty McCollum, Miss Minnie Carey, his wife, Walter Carey, that's Betty's father, and his wife, Bess Carey, and then Betty Sue, of course. Betty Sue McCollum, she is now. Minnie Dickerson, Leah Knowles, Doris Sue Knowles, Marilyn Knowles, and Jack Knowles, who were the family of Brother Robert Knowles. But I'll tell you why he didn't join that day. Another, Leon Robinson and Annie Robinson, Jane's mother and father. And my mother and father, William Kirksey and Opal Kirksey Dameron. Those were the charter members. The new church then went into the election of a pastor. Brother Robert Knowles was nominated, and since there were no other nominees, the nominations closed. Brother Knowles was elected pastor. Brother Lois Townsend was nominated as church clerk, and since there were no other nominees, thank you, Donald, the nomination closed, and Brother Lois Townsend was elected church clerk. The name of the church was selected as Independent Missionary Baptist Church. Brother W.H. Hopper gave the charge to the church. By motion and second, a move was made to adopt the church covenant and the articles of faith. The motion was approved by the church. By motion and second, a move was made to call for the ordination of Brother Robert Knowles. By motion and second and approval of the church, the second Sunday at 11 o'clock and second Sunday night at 7:30 o'clock of each month was set as the time for regular preaching services. There being no other business, conference closed. Now, Brother Hopper suggested the name Independent, indicating that the church would be independent of any other governing body, and the name was adopted. We, Missionary Baptists, believe in autonomy, that the church is itself the only governing body of the church. Nobody can tell us what pastor to get. Nobody can tell us what to do. We accept the members of the body. Now, Brother Knowles was elected pastor, but he was not an ordained minister. So we called for a minister, and you can understand why he didn't become a charter member, because if we called him for pastor, he would be a member of Independent then, and we couldn't ordain him. So he had to be ordained by the church that he was a member of, and he was a member of Bethel. So he had to get ordained first before we could actually use him as pastor. Is that clear? Okay. Now, that was on May the 14th. May the 23rd, which was just in a few days, they had a special meeting. Brother Knowles met with them, and they had the opportunity to buy an acre lot from Leon Kirksey for $300. So they said, let's do this. Can we pay for this lot? And so they agreed they were going to buy the lot, and that's where the church would be built. But they just said, we're not going to start building a church until we get that $300 paid for. Okay. Now, they voted to have service once a month and for a pastor to preach. But these people liked church, and they wanted somebody talking to them all the time, some preacher telling them about the Lord. So they would invite area preachers to come and preach on the days when the pastor wasn't there, on the Sundays. So we had a lot of different preachers going and coming. Now, we were also getting familiar with the preachers that were there, so we might need them in the future. Then in August the 6th, 1950, from May to August, we had the lot paid for, and they voted to start a church building. Then began the process. A lot of volunteers put their hearts and soul into the old building that is now our legacy sanctuary in that area over there. The nails that were driven in there and the pieces of wood that went to build that were put there with love and with devotion to their God by the people who were putting their all into building that old church. In the meantime, Brother Knowles had been ordained, and he could actively come in as our pastor. In the meantime, our clerk resigned, and in his stead, Brother H. Ray Smith, on September the 17th, 1950, was elected as clerk of the church. And he held that position until about 2023, was it, that he gave that up? I can't remember when exactly the date that he had his health was the cause of him having to give up being clerk. but he remained our church clerk all those years. Oh, I do have it in my notes. It was in 22. Brother Ray was elected to the office of clerk continually through the years until September the 11th, 2022, when he resigned. Brother Lee Carter was elected in his place, and Brother Smith passed away September the 7th, 2024. January 14th, 1951, which was just the next year, or about just a few months, they organized a Sunday school because these people were anxious to worship the Lord, and they were any opportunity they have. Of course, they didn't have all the distractions we have now, but they not only met for fellowship, they wanted to meet to worship the Lord. They were devoted to the Lord and His cause. Ray Smith was elected. They organized the Sunday school, and Ray Smith was elected as the superintendent of the Sunday school, and he kept that position all these years. He was reelected all those years until he had to give that up as well because of his health. I happened to be the secretary-treasurer of that new Sunday school way back then. And my mother was a teacher, and we have several in here that were teachers in our Sunday school down through the years. And I'm afraid to call their names because I might miss somebody, but anyway, those of you who went to Sunday school here remember who they were. It was in February of 1951 the church voted to have, no, I beg your pardon, that's not relative. That's not just some of the other. Okay. On May the 20th, 1951, they organized their first, or ordained their first two deacons, Brother C.W. Carey and Brother Leon Robinson, Jane's dad, were ordained as deacons in 51. Now, through the years, we have ordained several deacons, and I don't have time to do all their names, but we appreciate every person, every deacon who has, through the years, helped to bring this church to where it is today. They have led us. They didn't do it by themselves. The members of this church have put their devotion into all of these years of service to bring that church from what it was back then until what it is now. Now, this was our first church building when it was completed. You can see that we have gathered there to celebrate, and if you can see from back there, well, let me see on the next slide, we could see it a little better. There we are Independent. If you could see them, you'd see me. I'm probably the only one in that picture still living, except for the children up front, and that I believe is maybe Jan Kaiser. I don't know if Paulette is in there. Brent, I think, may be in Betty McCollum's arms. She's holding a baby, and I think that may be Brent because she was his babysitter at that time. But from July the 8th through the 15th, 1951, we had our first revival. There were two, there were two people joined the church and baptized during that revival, and you may or may not be able to recognize them, those of you who knew them, but that's Sam and Polly Allen. They united on the 15th, and they were first to be baptized in this church. And they were also Brother Nosey's first people to be baptized. I mean, that's the first ones he baptized. But they were the first baptized here in the church. Sam went on to be ordained a deacon later. Polly was active all the years of her life. Well, they were both active all the years of their life. And talking about the carpentry and things in the church, Sam was a carpenter, along with other members in the church. We've always had talented people in our church. And he has many hours of work invested in especially the old sanctuary that we just saw a minute ago. We appreciate our members like that who gave their all. In March the 9th, 1952, we decided we need a little more preaching from our pastor, so we went to twice a month. Then in March of 52, we ordained 2 more deacons. Now, when the church was organized, my father was a deacon when he was a charter member and he was a deacon, but he was the only one until we started ordaining these others, Now, I thought you might find this interesting. We don't do this anymore, and you don't hear of it anymore much, but some of the members wanted to have a foot washing in the church. You may have heard of that, you may not. I don't wonder if any of you have ever participated in a foot washing. I did once. My stepfather went to Mount Pisgah, up around Natchez Trace, and I went with him this Sunday, and they were having foot washing, and I decided I wanted to participate. And I'll tell you, I don't believe it's an ordinance of the church, but I received one of the greatest blessings in my life by participating in that. It's an humbling situation, and it both for the one that is doing the foot washing and one who is receiving it. But it was anyway. That was the one and only time it's ever been practiced in our church. Then in August the 10th, 1952, Brother Clarence Carter, Lee's father, was elected as our pastor. And in May the 10th of 1953, there we are. We had a dedication. The building was built, and we finally had to pay for it, and it was free and clear of debt, so we could then give it to the Lord. So we had this, on this day, we had the dedication, May the 10th, 1953. That's Brother Clarence Carter at the time. And most of these pictures, I wanted you to see what the inside of the old church looked like. We had a piano. I was the first pianist, I guess you'd say, at the church. The inside was tongue and groove planks, and it was varnished to a shine. These preachers were visiting with us on that day and having something to say. The one on the beginning on the left is Brother Hedges, Brother John Hedges. The next is Brother T.L. Campbell. And then the next, Brother A.G. Hayes. And probably none of you remember any of those. But you will see Brother Hedge and Brother Campbell in our array in the corridor of pastors. The pictures are in there. Brother A.G. Hayes participated in some revivals, but he was never pastor here. I don't know why we didn't eat outside. I thought maybe it might be raining, but it might have just been too hot. It was in May. But anyway, and we didn't have any tables outside. So we put the benches together and spread the food on the benches, and that's where we ate from. Those of you probably will remember at least Ray Smith. He's got his plate full up there, and Brother Carter. Well, I thought I had one more slide, but I may have picked up the wrong one. You may be wondering what that is. That was my Sunday school class in the new church. And you can see right up front somebody you should recognize. That's Brent Smith. At the back there in the shadow, is Paulette Cruz. And then, of course, there's Jan Smith, Gerald Kirksey, and, his name, Blackwell. I think they called him Duty Blackwell, I think. None of you will probably remember those. But these, Brother Campbell became our next pastor after Brother Carter, and then John Hedges following him. Ray Smith already had 2 jobs in the church. He was a clerk and he was superintendent of Sunday school. But then in June of 1953, Brother Knowles resigned as Bible class teacher, and Ray Smith was elected to that position, which he held until we couldn't use him anymore. The pastors that have served us through the years have been Robert Knowles, Clarence Carter, T.L. Campbell, John Hedges, E.J. Baker, Mitchell Rayburn, Robert Knowles again, F.L. Ray, and he drove all the way from Goodlettsville to come down and preach for us twice a month. And Weldon Chandler was a member of our church, and from the time that Brother Ray was not our pastor until Brother Kenneth Massey came, Weldon Chandler was sort of an interim. On Sunday, October the 22nd, 1978, it was the last service Brother Ray, F.L. Ray, attended. By the meeting on November, Brother Ray had passed away. He died on November the 3rd, 1978, and he died while in service to us. To all of those past, to those now current, thank you and thank them for every prayer, every kind word, every act of friendship, every act of charity, everything you did in the name of the Lord. Thank you so much what you have done. I'm so honored to be a member of this church and to have had the opportunity to have been here for so many years. I love all of you. Thank you for letting me share this time with you.
We appreciate all that Sister Ann shared with us today, and it's got a lot of personal knowledge that is precious to this church. And it's a treasure to be able to have that. I'm going to ask Brother Brent Smith to come, and he's going to share a bit more, pick up where Sister Ann left off, and talk more about the journey of our church. A little baby held in that picture in 1951.
Good morning. Most of you probably don't know who I am. I'm Brent Smith. I'll introduce myself. I had father and mother before me that went here that was Ray and Wilma Smith. Some of you might have remembered them. I have truly been blessed beyond measure. We talk about our blessings, but I've truly been blessed. Before them, my grandparents, Ed and Sarah Smith, and I've been here from the very beginning, as you well know. Born the same year they organized the church, May the 14th of 1950. I can remember when going to the old sanctuary, as Ann showed you pictures, and I don't remember the old garage they met in, because I was just an infant, but I got to thinking, Ann, wow, how things have changed. You went from a garage with the women wearing dresses and hats and the men starched shirts to a facility like this right here with wearing blue jeans and t-shirts. It's amazing how life changes. It really, really is. But you did a good job on our history, and I know everybody appreciated that. Brother James told me, he said, no more than 45 minutes. And I said, I promise I won't. Ann kind of brought us up through the history of the church up until Kenneth Massey come here, and I was told to do pre-Stapleton. So, Brother Stapleton, I can't say anything about you, and you're probably glad. Brother Massey came July the 8th of 1979. So I was 29 years old. Now, most of you aren't going to believe this. And I also had a 29-inch waist. If you don't believe that, look at the pictures in the back there. Chad, I hadn't always had that. And thank you for your kind remarks. What a blessing it is to have the mayor here that was a member here. And I grew up with the Edwards family, and y'all mean so much to me, as so many of you do. Oh, how blessed we are. But I was born the same year, grew up in this church, and I've heard every preacher that you see those pictures going down the hallway to the fellowship hall. I've heard every one of them. Back then, in days gone by, most of them had to work. And really, until Kenneth Massey came from the Wiseman Association out of Nashville here in '79, you probably never heard the word tithing much. It was hard for preachers to get by with people putting all they could. I'm not saying that. Like the woman that gave the mite, she gave more than anybody, it's all she had. But they had to live and support their families, so we had preachers once a month, or as Ann said, sometimes twice a month, and they would preach at our church and another church and rotate. Kenneth Massey was asked to come here by my father. He had heard Brother Massey, they'd been friends for a while, and he said, we'd love for you to come down here. Of course, naturally, he told him he'd pray about it, but he finally told him, he said, I'll come in one condition. I'm a full-time pastor. When he came knowing he would have to be a full-time pastor to see this church grow and prosper and do what it did. So I can remember coming in the first time I had heard Kenneth Massey, this fiery little red-headed short preacher out of Nashville, Tennessee, and buddy, he could preach. I told him, I said, I believe you can quote more scripture continually without looking down at the Bible than anybody I've ever heard. He said, oh no. No, not Brother F.L. Ray. We had a contest one time going to preach in Indiana, and he said, Kenneth, let's just see how much we can quote before we have to stop. He said, I'm not even close. And most of you knew Brother Ray that was here, that was an interim pastor for 2 years, and he did a magnificent job too. But Brother Massey was actively involved in the community. He wasn't just a preacher on Sunday morning here or Sunday nights. He was actively involved in the community. And most of you that don't know him probably as well as I, his personality is unbelievable. So he called me, I don't know, 3 or 4 times to come up to the Tennessee Vanderbilt baseball games. We're going in Dugan Field in Nashville, Tennessee, and people are hollering, "Hey, Massey, Massey, hey, Massey," from everywhere. Brother Stapleton knows this. And I'm not here to play him up. He's just a part of coming into where we saw the evolution in the church change from him being actively in the community. The others had to work. They couldn't do that. But it gave him the opportunity, by being a full-time pastor, to be involved in the community. So when you're involved in the community, that's where you meet people. That's where you get your youth here. Of course, our children were about the age of Julie and Lance, and they were involved in ball. We had a church softball league, and etc. But the church just exploded. It exploded. People had heard about, hey, have you been out to Independent at that time, Huntingdon Missionary Baptist Church? And we began to see people come in, and all of a sudden this altar, we saw many, many, many people saved. So many people saved right here. I look out, and I can remember who it was, and when it happened, and it means so much to me. I'm blessed because I've been here from the very beginning. And when the old store building was down here, right to the right of the cupboard that's messed up down here, when it was sitting there, we had a fellowship hall, and that's where we would have our Sunday school classes and our Christmas parties and everything. Well, that's how the Victory Quartet got started. He just had a way of doing things. I don't know how, but he just walked up to me, and we were singing Christmas carols, and he said, "Hit where we'll never grow old." I said, "What?" He said, just sing it. And I just took off with, "I have heard of a land on the faraway strand." He said, "Mary, come over here." He'd heard her sing alto, and she came right in. He had Harold to come over, and he sang the bass. He said, "Now I'm going to sing a niner. I never have been a tenor." And so we cut our first tape in Nashville, Tennessee, under Eddie Crook 40 years ago. And we hadn't traveled in a long time till we sang at Crossroads here a few weeks ago. But anyway, we won't get into the Victory Quartet, but Brother Massey's responsible for that. He's responsible for the name. When we began to sing, "What are we going to name ourselves?" He said, "Nothing better than victory. There's victory in Jesus." So we became the Victory Quartet. But he has took the church to a new level, and then we had another preacher right behind him. And it's not easy getting good preachers and pastor. And y'all know what I'm talking about. You can be a good preacher without being a good pastor. Really, you can be kind of a good pastor and not be very good in the pulpit. But we've had them. Don't go there. It's so hard to find them that the last time we had to go to Alaska. And we're learning to like him too. I just want to say this before I close. I'm not going to take up much more time. One thing has changed. A lot of things have changed. Let me rephrase that. But one thing hasn't changed, won't change, and I don't believe will ever change. And that's our faith and what we believe in. Chad, I just asked you a question, not to put you on the spot. Have you ever lost your salvation? No, sir. I like that grin. I hadn't either. That's one thing you won't ever lose. You can lose everything in this life, but you can't lose that. Yeah, that's him. That's him. So our faith and what we believe in, and those that stand in this pulpit that preach God's word and preaches the truth, and that's what I'm most proud of anything. I'm very blessed to have gone, generationally speaking, as far as I have, through 4 generations, and my children still come here, and it's been a blessing. I love every one of y'all. I love the encouragement that you've always gave me. You know, I'm always a big cut up. I always have been. But when I come through those doors, I'm here to worship God. And I know we'll continue to. God bless all of you.
Good morning. Let's see if I can do this without really, I'll show my age, but my mother made a New Year's resolution, and we added this up when I was in January before I turned 1 in May. So that's been 63 years. So I've been blessed to be a member of this, well, a part of this church for that length of time. Through that time, I have seen 3 of my 3 boys saved, 1 here, 1 here, and 1 here. And that's the biggest blessing a mama can have. But anyway, we want to take a minute to honor those that have gone before us, because so many of these people have prayed for us through the years. They prayed for the future of this church, and they were our parents, second parents, grandparents. And they've all meant so much to us, and we want to take a minute to remember them.
Everything new, Jesus. One day you will bind every wound. The former things shall all pass away. No more tears. One day you'll make sense of it all, Jesus. One day every question resolved. Every anxious thought left behind, no more fear. When we all get to heaven, what a day of rejoicing that will be. When we all see
One of the great joys of the ministry is being able to preach a gospel which can bring people into a brand new life. And one of the other burdens but yet joys of the ministry is to see people who have been given that new life come to the end of their journey, pass from this one to the next. And over the 75-year history of this church, no man among us except one represents such a large swath of that time as Brother Len Stapleton, serving for 33 years in a church is no small thing. And I know that his care and concern for this congregation is unparalleled. And he has given much of his life to see this church flourish and progress. And he needs no introduction to you all today. But it's a blessing and a privilege to have Brother Len with us and ask you to come. And all the Lord, brother.
Once I was straying in sin's dark valley, no hope within could I see. They searched through heaven and found a Savior to save a poor lost soul like me. Oh, what a Savior! Oh, hallelujah! His heart was broken on Calvary. His hands were nail-scarred, his side was riven. He gave his life's blood for even me. Death's chilling waters I'll soon be crossing. His hand's gonna lead me, say, oh, and then I'll join the chorus in that great city, and I'll sing up there forever and evermore. Oh, what a Savior! Oh, hallelujah! His heart was broken on Calvary. His hands were nail-scarred, his side was riven. He gave his life's blood for even me. Oh, what a Savior!
Boy, that's got us on shouting ground, hadn't it? I wondered, Donna, how many times in the years that Brother Larry's been gone from us here that he's had the opportunity to sing that song for our Lord and Master in heaven. When we leave here, when all's said and done in this world, and we leave here and go to that heavenly land throughout eternity, he'll still be that wonderful Savior that we'll sing and praise forevermore. What a blessing that is. They said last night how difficult it was for Susan to follow this young boy leading the singing last night. And what a blessing that was. I sat there and watched the joy in his face. And I thought, you know, that's what church is all about. It's bringing little children to church, and from an early age, they start picking up on how good and how wonderful this is. You know, and kids just love to sing that song. And I thank the Lord for that, you know, and it's priceless. We've never had any trouble getting children to come to church here at HMBC. The trouble is getting their parents to come and bring those kids, you know, and more often than not, the children would come and bring their parents. And we'd have special events that centered on our children, and boy, it'd bring the parents and grandparents and neighbors out to see them, you know. If you just get that message across to them, how wonderful it is. I've got to say this, Donna, to you, to the choir, to the Victory Quartet, and everybody that sung last night. You all really don't know what you have here. I mean, you really don't know what you have here. Brian, I can't remember your uncle's name. He come here from Atlanta on his way, I think, to Missouri. Yep. And he would just be like a kid in a candy shop, just blown away, you know, by the awesome singing. Lisa sang about an awesome God last night. Well, you all have awesome singing here, and you just don't really realize how blessed you are. I'm just almost to the point of being unspeakable. To be honored to be here today with you. This is sacred ground for me. It really, really is. And I thank you for that. And for Nan, on behalf of Nan as well, we're both thrilled to be here. And I never thought I'd have the opportunity to stand and share this pulpit with the Honorable Chad Edwards, mayor of the town of Huntingdon. Wow, he cleans up pretty good too, Susie. You all raised him right, didn't you? Well, I know whenever I'd see Chad, he'd be like this, you know. And now look at him. I mean, just look at him. Wow, he looks mayoral, doesn't he? And I didn't know whether to. Well, I didn't know. I didn't tuck my shirt in today. My dad always fussed at me as a kid growing up to tuck my shirt in. Dad, it's out. It's out. And no socks. My dad is just, he's scratching his head in heaven, I know. But anyway, you all shop at the same store I do. And it's great. I noticed in that picture, when they took that big church family picture, and they couldn't afford T-shirts back then. So we're really blessed. We've come a long way. And my part of this is just maybe just to share a few highlights of the time that I spent here. And just kind of have to start at the beginning. Brother Ray Smith called me out of the blue and asked me about coming here to Huntingdon and why I came here. Nan and I had come to visit, and we went back to Detroit where I was pastoring. And I told Brother Ray that, you know, thanks for the opportunity, but I didn't feel like that was the decision to make. But I went back to Detroit, and I'd be studying, trying to prepare to preach there. And all that was in my mind's eye was this pulpit and this group of people here. That went on for several weeks until I finally believed the Lord was in the decision to come here. When 1988, Grace Missionary Baptist Church in Detroit, Michigan, where I was pastor, we called Brother Massey to help us in a revival. That would have been in May of that year. And Brother Massey came. He and we were acquainted. I had met him at association meetings, spoke a few words. That's about it. We really didn't know each other. But Brother Massey graciously consented to come. And when he arrived, he hadn't been in the door 5 minutes, and the phone rang, and somebody from McFerrin Missionary Baptist Church in Nashville had called him. Little did I know, Brother Massey had resigned as pastor here at Huntingdon, and they were calling, inquiring about him coming to McFerrin. And to make a long story short, I knew when Brother Massey came to help in revival there in Detroit that I was finished in Detroit. The Lord just kind of let me know that. I hadn't said anything to the church, and Brother Massey and I spoke that week, and I just kind of revealed to him that I felt like I was through there. Anyway, Brother Massey preached that year, and we had a good revival meeting. I was blessed to have him with us. And he came back home to Huntingdon and dropped my name here. Brother Massey, I don't know if he ever heard me preach or not before that moment. But anyway, that's what led to Brother Ray Smith calling me to inquire if I would be interested in coming here. And I thought, well, I don't know. You know, I'm just kind of hanging out, waiting for the Lord to. There was a commercial, a vintage commercial years ago, where somebody would answer the telephone. I can't even tell you what they were advertising, but I remember the line. This guy would answer the phone and said, "Get to Omaha," you know. And I guess that's kind of how it was for me when I was in Detroit. Get to Huntingdon, you know. Ray Smith called, and I put him off. But anyway, we came here, Nan and I did Thanksgiving of 1988. And it was the worst deluge since the flood, you know, since Noah's day here in Huntingdon. Seriously, it was. Nan and I learned what bottomland was for the first time in our life. This place was underwater. It really was. It was incredible. I'd never seen anything like it. Horrible looking place. But the people in the church were really nice. Ray and Wilma put us up for the weekend, and they ran us off to Jackson one night. I think they were trying to show us that there's some civilization around Carroll County. But anyway, it was the worst weekend you ever saw. The people here were quite wonderful, welcoming. We really enjoyed that, and I stumbled through a couple of sermons, and we couldn't wait to get out of town, Nan and I both. I remember thanking Brother Ray at the door for the opportunity, you know, and I told him at that moment, you know, I'm just not feeling nothing. And when I got back home, I wrote a letter back to Independent Church, what it was at the time, saying thanks but no thanks. Nan and I, we were ready to just sail on out of here, you know. It was nearly underwater by the time we left, and couldn't wait to get back home. But that's the way it was. And I thank the church. I thank them for the opportunity, but I expressed to them that maybe they should look elsewhere. Much to my chagrin, they never did, that I know of. And Ray kept calling. And as I said, as I was trying to prepare for the meetings in Detroit, I was seeing this in my mind's eye. And I came to the conclusion around Christmas that this is why I couldn't understand why the Lord wanted me to come from up north here, where there was so many preachers and so many churches. But anyway, the Lord has put things on my mind to do that I've rarely been able to understand, but I've learned through the years, you just trust him. You know, leave the results and the details. You just trust the Lord and do what he says, and things will generally work out really, really well. And little did Nan and I know that we were beginning a 33-long-year ministry, year-long ministry here. And I can truly tell you, they were the best years of my life in ministry right here. We really miss this place, and we miss all of you. And it's just always good to be here. And you really don't know what you have here. It's a blessing beyond description. You know, we all should recognize how blessed we are by God every day. Everyone knew us when we came to town, or at least they knew who we were. We were the newbies in town. I can't remember, it might have been Larry Thomason. I was looking for somebody to repair an appliance. They told me about Joe Haywood, and I went to see him about getting some repair. He said, "You're the new preacher at Independent, aren't you?" I said, "How'd you know?" And he said, "Really wasn't that hard to figure out." I don't know if it's the face or the accent or what, but anyway, he knew who I was. They knew Nan was the one going around the square with the turn signal on. Yeah. Everybody knew we bought the Joyner home, and it was the Joyner home as long as we lived there, over on Mavenwood. Brian Edwards had to come out and show me where the water meter was. I've looked all over the house. Surely there's got to be a place to turn the water off in this place, you know. And finally called the city. Well, how do you? And they sent Brian out. He came out there and showed me it's out in the front yard of all places, you know, buried. And I had to come to Tennessee to have my first experience with frozen plumbing. Yeah, but anyway. Joe Bailey knew who Nan was. She went over there to buy a part for the dishwasher. He sent her home with it without paying. And she said, "Aren't you worried?" He said, "I know where you live." Yeah, and we learned quickly that pork shoulder and catfish on Friday night were West Tennessee delicacies, you know. And it took us a while to come around to catfish, but we finally caught on. We got here last night and had catfish at Mallard's. It was great. My early years here, to me anyway, seemed uneventful. I think people were sizing up the new preacher from above the Mason-Dixon line. Some people just didn't hardly think I could be sound in the faith and be raised up north, but anyway, and we were trying to figure out who everybody was and remember all the names, which is a real challenge. How have you done with that, Brother James? It's rough, isn't it? Yeah. Oh, and by the way, I've told people this. Brother Massey was here 9 years or so, and I've told people repeatedly, you know, I was here 33 years, was blessed to be here. I said, it's taken me that long to straighten out Brother Massey's mess. So if it took me that long, Brother James, to straighten out his mess, I can't imagine how long it's going to take you to straighten out the mess I've made of things. But anyway, we came here, and it's been a real blessing. We had 8 deacons at the time. Brother Sam Allen, and the pictures were just fantastic of Sam and Polly. And Sam Allen was a deacon, Dorsey Dameron, Max Green, Kenny Rush, Ray Smith, Leon Robinson, Tommy Cruz, and Harold Webb were deacons at the time. And I've got to tell you, you know, just some of the best men that I've ever had the privilege to work with. You know, in Genesis, it tells us there in, I think around the 6th chapter of Genesis, there were giants in the land then. To me, folks, you know, we've had giants in our midst, both men and women. Tom Moody came along later. Carl Skates. We've ordained a few deacons here. Johnny Brent, finally, one of he had to wait until I was gone before he finally consented to become a deacon. But I hope he works out for you. I really do. Claude Haddock, Mitchell Whitworth and Steve Edwards, Jimmy Simpson, and we've just had terrific men and their wonderful wives to work with through those years. I remember being here and standing in the pulpit and looking out at this congregation for those early weeks and months and thinking, man, half these people are getting ready to go to heaven. I mean, literally, I thought they were just knocking on death's door, and I'm really pleased to see some of you still here. Some great ones have already gone on. If I started mentioning names, I'd overlook some. But it's just been a blessing to have been in their presence, to serve the Lord with them. Just an incredible blessing. The sanctuary here was built when we came. Parking lot wasn't paved. Nan would skin up her high heels walking across the parking lot week after week, but the building had been built and it was paid off in just an incredibly short time. I remember the first business meeting we had, and Harold Webb read the treasurer's report that night, and I think we had like a $5 and something balance. And I said, "Excuse me?" I said, "Would you read that again?" And he read it back. Yeah, $5 and some odd cents was all he had in the treasure. And I'm thinking, how are they going to pay me every week? But that's the way. I mean, he just paid everything on the mortgage here, and they just trusted the Lord. And wow, the building was paid for in no time, which was pretty incredible. Then we went on. We paved the parking lot. Added a new sign. We filled the drainage ditches in once, but y'all figured that needed to be redone, and not having such a good time of it, I see. But just persevere. You'll finally get there. We redecorated the sanctuary. It went from mauve to this beautiful blue. It was just an incredible blue. I loved it, and it was just really different, but it was nice. And then we went to this, and this is incredible as well. And of particular interest, I discovered some stationery here in the office, some old stationery that was here, and it said Friendly Independent Baptist Church on it. And I can tell you that's exactly what Independent Missionary Baptist Church was. It was a friendly church. They were open and welcoming to Nan and me, and to everybody else that walked in the door. And that's just one of the many reasons why HMBC has grown so and been so successful, is because of their friendliness. And I've found it a great place for myself to heal spiritually when I came here. And other people have experienced that as well. Just a loving Christian family. We've had bumps in the road, of course. We've had difficulties, but the people here genuinely love each other, care for each other, and they open their hearts and the doors of the church to other people who come along as well to experience that, and it's incredible. We built a new fellowship hall in 1994, along with a big 2-car garage. Brother Audie Simpson and myself, we drew the plans out for that on a legal pad, and that was our blueprint. Seriously, that's all we had. Harold Miller provided a tremendous amount of free labor and materials as well in building that. And let's see, Kenny Rush and Harold Webb, Walter Brown, Johnny Bartholomew, they were electricians. They did all the wiring. Claude Haddock was the only plumber we had, and Claude was not a member here, and Claude was here every day, doing the plumbing and anything else he could. And I remember sitting in my office just praying, Claude, stay home today. Just stay home today, because I needed to stay in the office and study, and I hated for him to be back here working by himself. But he came every day and helped us build that fellowship hall, and it was a wonderful blessing. I was coming through Nashville, and I stopped to get a cup of coffee, and there was this church van sitting there with this fantastic ski boat behind it. It was all color coordinated, you know, had the church name on the van, church name on the boat. I came back to Huntingdon and I suggested that we had a church van back here in the 2-car garage. We had another slot available, but they didn't go for the ski boat. You know, I think that's the only thing through the years that I suggested to them that they just really didn't go for. But it would have been a nice addition to the church, I thought. You know, we've got lakes around here, but anyway. Revival in 1998, Brother Brian Oakes was selected that year to help us in revival. And Brian came and did a remarkable job. He did some amazing preaching that week. And through the course of that revival meeting, day and night, we didn't have a move. Nobody came to the altar, no additions to the church. Nothing, you know, it's one of those revival meetings you come to the end of and everybody's patting on yourself on, well, we've sowed some good seeds, you know, it was a good meeting. Yeah, I've heard that, I don't know how many times. But the revival ended, and then Sunday we came back to church. And that Sunday, when the service was ended, we had 7 saved, 14 additions to the church. I had 9 people to baptize that year. It was incredible, you know. And God is just so good. He is just so wonderfully good, and he blessed us. Another unusual Sunday in 2002 in March, I had one person to baptize, and while we were getting ready for that, someone came to the altar and wanted to join the church, and so they kind of put this lady off for just a few moments till we could get this baptism done. And at the end of that service, we had 1 saved and 6 additions that day, and most of them to be baptized as well. So, you know, God, he works in mysterious ways, and it's always different. It's never quite the same, you know, and you just have to trust in the Lord and wait on the Lord. Early on HMBC, we began a junior youth program. Some of you were here at the time. They had a youth program in place for teenagers, but we decided, you know, we were maybe waiting a little bit too late, so we started a junior youth program. And, you know, both the senior and junior youth continued to grow through the years, and we had many dedicated youth leaders through those years, and some of you are youth leaders now. And I know the church appreciates your dedication and commitment to that. It's a big job. It really is, working with kids. It's a blessing. It can be challenging, and I just thank the Lord for the willingness of all of you to serve. Ray Smith always unabashedly said, you know, when you call a pastor, you get 2 for 1. You get the preacher's wife also when you call the preacher. And I can tell you that Nan was a tremendous help to me. My greatest confidant, critic, advisor, you know, and guys, we know who's in charge. We really do. And I appreciate it. She was just the quintessential pastor's wife. I know I'm bragging on her. I better quit. She and I discovered a book one time in a Christian bookstore that was titled, "So You're the Pastor's Wife." And we got a big kick out of that. We referred to that book, "So You're the Pastor's Wife." And she's the pastor's wife. She was involved in VBS and the junior and senior youth program, not to mention the Helping Hands ladies who helped us, you know, organize events at the church, ministered to the sick and shut-ins here at the church, in and out of the church, and many other things that they've contributed to the church. And not to mention, you know, they would get together and take the church van off to who knows where and have way more fun than was biblically permissible. And they don't talk about that so much openly, but appreciate the helping hands ladies through the years and what they've contributed to the church. In 1999, HMBC hired its first official employee. They hired Ann Ridings at the exorbitant sum of $7 an hour. And some of us wondered whether she's going to be worth it or not. Let's see, she's a musician, choir leader, secretary, photographer, librarian, gardener, and I was so glad that she couldn't preach. Because y'all know, I would have just been unnecessary around here if that was possible. I thank the Lord for that little restriction there, but Ann, your contribution to the church has been immense, and still felt. We had half a choir when I first came here, and look at what y'all have now. The choir has grown, and it's incredible. And every time I come here and I sit just for a few minutes and listen to y'all sing, it just blesses my soul incredibly. In February 2001, we went through a name change. It was independent. Missionary Baptist Church in the beginning. We learned through the years, nobody really much liked the name. And we were being identified with a whole denomination of independent Baptists, fundamental Baptists. And there's little distinctions between this Baptist church and this Baptist church. And there's more Baptist churches, as many Baptist churches as there are denominations. But anyway, we changed the name to Huntingdon Missionary Baptist Church, and it was a good move for us. And in 2001, HMBC became known as the Church of What's Happening Now. There was this things happening here all the time. The church had become, as Brother Massey was involved in the community, we became more involved in the community as well. Relay for Life team, we had a stellar choir that was singing at community functions on a yearly basis. Our mission outreach, the Victory Quartet, and all of these things contributed to our visibility in the community. And I really think for the longest time, Huntingdon didn't really realize that there was a church out here like Huntingdon, and I'm thankful for the impact that this church has made on this community. Beginning in 2002, we began acquiring properties adjacent to the church, and I think in the end of that, we bought up about 6 different parcels of land here, for future expansion. And we built the new Christian Life Center, and new kitchen, and other the pavilion out here as well. In September of 2002, I baptized the oldest person in my ministry. Brother James Turner was 85 years old, giant of a man physically. He was really big. His hands were twice the size of mine. And James, bless his heart, he had Parkinson's. He had the tremors. And it was amazing. When I was trying to help James get up, he was pulling down. If I was trying to help him get seated, he's pushing back up, just kind of the opposite. But James told me one day when I was visiting him, he was saved when he was just a young man. And he said, the biggest mistake I ever made, he says, I was never baptized. I said, really? He said, yeah. I said, we can fix that. I said, it's not too late, Brother James. And he came to church one Sunday morning, and I had prepared the baptistry because I knew he wanted to be baptized. He gave his testimony that day, and Tommy Cruz, maybe Harold Webb, I think, helped me baptize this giant of a man. And we were concerned with him having Parkinson's. But that was the first Sunday when James was baptized, the church just erupted in applause. And I just came to the conclusion that's biblical. It tells us in Psalm 47:1, oh, clap your hands and shout to God in triumph. He's speaking to Israel about the blessings of God. And every victory that we experience in the Lord is an applaudable event. And so every baptism, the church applauds that. And it is an applaudable event when somebody follows the Lord in baptism. And I was so thankful and blessed to be able to be a part of that. We had hot fudge last night, and I was hoping that maybe somebody would join the church, Sarah. We've got some hot fudge members. One night we decided to have hot fudge. We like to have those eating meetings. And we'd fixed hot fudge, and after the service, Joe and Sarah came up to me. I was just getting ready to dig into that hot fudge, and they said, "We made a terrible mistake tonight." And I said, "What's the problem?" They said, "We needed to join the church." And I said, "Well, we can fix that too." And so we called the church to order a business back there in the fellowship hall while we made the hot fudge cool off a little bit. And Joe and Sarah gave their testimony back there, and we received them, and they became wonderful members and additions to HMBC. We had to pray a long time in Prod Berry before he finally got saved and joined in with us. But he's come along too. He's made a pretty good, helpful member of the church, and just one of those odd circumstances. We just need to allow the Lord opportunity to work and follow him. And other memorable experiences. Patrick Smith was Miss Sarah Smith's great burden. She'd work on him every year to get him to revival meeting, and he'd come here and he'd sit just as glum as he possibly could, just couldn't wait till the service was over and get out, And that went on for the longest time. And I'm in my office one day, and somebody's rattling those doors out front, and I walk out in the vestibule, and there's Patrick. And I open the door. He said, "I'm under the worst conviction I've ever had in my life." I said, "Let's go in and pray about it." We came right down here, and Patrick prayed, and he got saved. It was just an incredible experience. Alan Simpson, we worked on Alan Simpson for a long time and prayed for him. He finally got saved. I believe he was driving his car. A friend of his had passed away. And they were driving in the car, I believe on the way to the cemetery, and the reality of his lost condition just really set in on him, and he got saved driving his car. And I'm proud to say that, we prayed for Alan a long time. Tommy Wood, Don, I remember him sliding into home plate right down here, one night in revival and got saved in a short time. Saw Jeremy Hill's picture. Remember this young boy getting saved at a young age and going around singing, "I'm going to heaven." Little did any of us know how quickly that boy would go to heaven. And it's just another bright reason to rejoice in the thoughts that we have of going to heaven as well. Big Jim Augustine was our Polak. And I say that with all the affection. Jim was a Polak, and he knew he was. It just in every sense of the word. And he was rough, and his language was rough. And he sat here on this altar, this big husky fellow, and just wept like a baby and trusted in the Lord and got saved. It was comical to watch him struggle over getting over his profanity. I don't know how many times, "Oops, sorry, preacher," he would say. But you could tell the Lord was making that new creature out of him. I think he had a little difficult time with Jim, but anyway, that was amazing. And I can't forget Rachel Carter. She kept us at the altar here for a solid year, every Sunday. I could preach on tithing, and Rachel Carter was going to come to the altar. I guess the Lord knew we needed the practice, and she finally got it worked out. Scripture tells us to work out your own salvation with fear and trembling, and she did, and finally, testified that she was saved. And there were many others. We built the CLC, the Christian Life Center, not a gym. It's not a gymnasium. That's where the Greeks exercised in the nude. And I told the church, we're not going to do that here. So it's a Christian Life Center. Ray Smith and I stopped by the church one evening after association meeting. We sat there and just kind of brainstormed on what we needed to do as a church. And that CLC and the Sunday school wing came out of that. We hired Fisher Construction to build that, and they built a kitchen for us so we could have those eating meetings. And boy, we liked to have those eating meetings, didn't we? Just a lot of wonderful fellowship. You know, that's important too, brothers and sisters. You know, the doctrinal truth is important, but the fellowship, you know, to build and cultivate the fellowship in the church where this body of people come together and they become a spiritual family, a family that genuinely loves each other and likes to be together is incredibly important. At our open house that we had, I remember this gentleman asked me, what fundraising did you all do to pay for this? And I said, we don't do any fundraising. He said, you don't do any how do you pay for it? And I said, the old-fashioned way, tithes and offerings. And that's exactly how this church is operated, tithes and offerings. Nobody's obligated to give anything, and we don't sell stuff and you know, try to raise money that way. We do it the way the Bible explains that we should do it, tithes and offerings. And then some years later, we took an incredible step where the church decided to set aside 10% of its offerings, or a tithe of its offerings, to support missions. And out of that decision, HMBC has developed an incredible mission support for numerous missions around the world. And it continues to grow, and Huntingdon as a church continues to grow with it. And they continue to be a light in West Tennessee, in Carroll County, in Huntingdon and beyond. And she truly has been friendly, independent Baptist church, Huntingdon Missionary Baptist Church, a friendly church. HMBC is wonderful for many reasons. It's already been stated about their steadfastness in the faith. You know, this church has never been afraid to try something new. I remember Trey Cruz suggesting one time early on that we have a lock-in. I didn't know what a lock-in was, and I had asked him for some clarification. He said, well, kids will spend the night at the church. And I don't know, it just rattled my chain, but as I thought about it and prayed about it, I couldn't find a reason for them not to do that. And we started that lock-in meeting one night about 9 o'clock, and we had a house full of kids in here, and a young preacher that came from Nashville, he just cut loose and preached the gospel to them. And Amanda Stokes and Matt Tucker came to the altar. Matt, bless his heart, I can almost hear him now. He was just weeping and praying audibly for God to have mercy on his soul. Amanda got saved that night. Matt didn't get satisfied, but he went on and finally acknowledged being saved. And it was just wonderful things that come out of just trying new things. You know, just because it's new doesn't mean it's not workable. But anyway, this church has always been forward thinking, and it's been the best place that I've been in my Christian life, to worship the Lord, to heal spiritually, to grow spiritually in knowledge, and to experience the love that God has for us and that we should have for one another. I've quoted my favorite scriptures many times here. 1 John 3, verses 1 and 2 says, behold, what manner of love the Father hath bestowed upon us, that we should be called the sons of God. And he goes on to say, he said, therefore, the world knoweth us not because it knew him not. They said, beloved, now, not future tense, now are we the sons of God. Doesn't yet appear what we shall be, but we know that when he appears, we shall be like him, for we shall see him as he is. That's why it's so important for us, brothers and sisters, to come to church and focus on who Jesus is, to learn about who and what he is, that we would grow into that same image. And I thank you, HMBC, for allowing me the privilege to be your pastor for so many years and to experience so many incredible blessings. I know what Brother James, I thank the Lord for him answering the call to come here. And the years ahead will reveal what great things God has in store for you and Mary. Like Brother Ray Smith always said, to get 2 for 1. And we appreciate your willingness to come here, you and your family, to become an active members of this church. And it's just a blessing. Nan, I've been watching from a distance your growth, your increase in the Lord. And I know that's going to continue as long as you continue, seeking to follow the Lord's will for your life. God bless you all. Nan and I love you more than we can say. And it's our honor and our privilege to be here to share this anniversary, 75th. We were here for the 50th anniversary. It's a blessing to be here for the 75th. I'd like to hang around for the 100th, but this is also my birthday, so I don't see that year 100 coming around. But anything's possible, right? yeah. God bless you all is my prayer. Brother James, thank you for the invitation. God bless.
I've been very blessed this morning. It's been a great blessing to hear from each of these speakers and the choir and the special song from the past. God has been very, very good to us today, and I hope it's stirred your heart. We've got a wonderful lunch prepared. Don't forget, we're going to be taking a picture right as soon as we get out of here. Before we dismiss, though, is there anything that needs to be shared today on anyone's heart? If not, I do want to say a special thank you. I got so many compliments on these t-shirts, and I want to thank Sister Allie Higdon for all your hard work. You're back there. Allie came up with this design. She is very, very gifted and has been using her talents to serve the church and with our VBS designs and things. And also Brother Anthony and Sister Kalia for getting this all arranged. We appreciate you all and making this all come together. All hearts are free. We'll stand and be dismissed in a word of prayer. I'm going to ask Brother Kenny Rush, would you dismiss us?